Hi everybody, welcome to our child safety training session by Flying Start Family Daycare Scheme, delivered in May 2026. In this session, we are going to cover the Child Safe Standards, Child Safe Code of Conduct, Child Safe Environment Policy, Child Safe Environment Risk Assessment, the Statement of Commitment to Child Safety and Paramountcy Principle, Child Protection Obligations, and Safe Use of Digital Technology. So first of all, we're going to talk about the child safe standards. The Office of the Children's Guardian has made 10 standards for organizations to follow in order to be child safe. So these child safe standards are created by the Office of the Children's Guardian, which is a New South Wales authority. The child safe standards state the following. Standard 1. Child safety is embedded in organizational leadership, governance, and culture. Standard 2, children participate in decisions affecting them and are taken seriously. Now, that's something that educators need to be very conscious of and need to be practicing every day. You need to make sure that children are participating in decisions which affect them. So, in other words, you ask children, what do they think? What do they want to do? What do they think is the best way to do it? Get them to participate in decisions. And obviously, in whatever decisions you're making, after you have asked children for their input, you will still decide whatever is in the best interest of the children. Number 3, families and communities are informed and involved. Again, educators should be practicing this standard on a daily basis. They should be always informing parents and families and carers about the children, and they should always be asking the parents and the carers for their suggestions and their feedback and what they think should be done. And as you know, when people ask for your opinion or they ask for your suggestion and they follow your suggestion or follow your opinion, that makes you very happy. So similarly, you should ask parents what do they think, what do they think should be done, and then when you follow that and you show that you are respecting their opinions, then the parents will be very happy as well. Number 4, equity is upheld and diverse needs are taken into account. Number 5, people working with children are suitable and supported. Number 6, processes to respond to complaints of child abuse are child-focused. Okay, now what this means is that if there's any complaints of child abuse, our priority is the well-being of the child. So our priority is not the parent, the educator, the staff member, the visitor. That is not the priority. The person who's most important is the child. And that could mean that there is an allegation or a complaint about a staff member or about an educator or even about a parent, or sometimes about another child. There could be complaints about somebody who's responsible for child abuse. So when those complaints happen, then we make sure our focus is on that child. Number 7, staff are equipped with the knowledge, skills, and awareness to keep children safe through continual education and training. This is part of your continual education and training, watching this video and participating. 8, physical and online environments minimize the opportunity for abuse to occur. 9, implementation of the child safe standards is reviewed and improved. And 10, policies and procedures document how the organization is child safe. Questions for you to think about. Who created the child safe standards? If you are paying attention, you will know the answer. How many standards are there? Again, you should know the answer. The answer to these questions are as follows. The child safe standards were created by the Office of the Children's Guardian. If you answered that correctly, well done. Congratulations. And there are 10 standards. Okay. So now we move on to the Child Safe Code of Conduct. The Child Safe Code of Conduct was developed by Flying Start Family Daycare Scheme. It applies to staff, educators, parents, and children. The Code of Conduct summarizes important do's and don'ts to help ensure child safety. So we're going to go through them now. Educators will prioritize the safety, well-being, and voices of children at all times. Treat all children and families with respect, dignity, and inclusion. Create a welcoming, culturally safe, and supportive environment. Maintain professional boundaries at all times. Respond appropriately to concerns or disclosures of harm. Engage in regular training to improve child safe practices. So those are the things that educators will do. Now, what will we not do? Educators will not use inappropriate language, threats, or physical punishment. Discriminate against, isolate, or humiliate any child or family. Ignore signs of harm or fail to report concerns. Form personal or private relationships with children beyond their professional role. Share personal or sensitive information without consent, unless required for safety. So now you have a list of things not to do as well. Thankfully, we know all of you are not doing any of these things. So just make sure that you are able to understand these points and you're able to explain to whoever needs to be explained why these are important for child safety. Questions. Please give one example of something that educators should do to ensure children's safety in family daycare. So you can answer that question by referring to the previous slides. And please give one example of something that educators should not do to ensure children's safety in family daycare. Again, you can answer that question by referring to the information in previous slides. You will be given a quiz to participate in after you have watched this video. So please make sure you are following this video and not washing the dishes or scrolling on your phone or cooking or whatever else you may be doing at this time. Wow, that was really, sorry, that was really inappropriate. I kind of just generalized some really stereotypical things there. Let's move on. Next, the Child Safe Environment Policy. So again, this is a policy that we've developed in Flying Start Family Daycare Scheme. This policy helps us to implement the national principles for child safe organizations. Now, national principles for child safe organizations. These are 10 principles that are very similar to the child safe standards that we looked at earlier in this presentation. But the difference is the 10 child safe standards are developed by the New South Wales Office of the Children's Guardian. That is a state department or state authority, New South Wales. These national principles are Commonwealth or federal, so they've been developed by a federal body, but if you read them, they're pretty much the same thing. So we're going to go through some parts of our policy here, and please pay attention to it. You can read the whole policy in our Policies and Procedures Manual, which you all have access to via Hub Hello and via other means as well. Our commitment. Children's safety, well-being, and dignity are our priority. We promote respectful, inclusive, and child-safe environments. Children are encouraged to speak up and have a say. Families are welcomed and involved in child safety decisions. That's it. It would really help if I knew what was coming next. Anyway, educator responsibilities. Educators must provide active supervision at all times, protect children from harm, abuse, and neglect, respect children's privacy and dignity, be positive role models, and follow the code of conduct and child protection policies, and report concerns, incidents, or allegations immediately. So that is a pretty good summary of how you maintain a child safe environment. It's that's a very good thing to just memorize. Supervision, protect from harm and abuse, respect privacy and dignity, be a positive role model, follow the code of conduct, and report any concerns. So feel free to write this down, memorize it, read it out, and definitely practice it on a daily basis in your work. Professional expectations. Educators must not discriminate against children, use threats, harsh treatment, or inappropriate language, show favoritism, or develop special relationships. It sounds nice, but it's not nice, so don't do that. Use alcohol or drugs that impair supervision or judgment. So please limit your alcohol or drug intake prior to any sessions of care. Child protection requirements. All educators and adults over 18 in the residence must hold a valid working with children check. Okay, that's not technically a child protection requirement, but it's part of our child safe environment requirements. Child protection knowledge must be refreshed yearly. Children must never be left alone with visitors, volunteers, or students. And that includes household members. So we are not supposed to be leaving children alone with anybody besides the educator. So please be mindful of that. Educators must always be contactable during care hours. Okay, so while you are in care or while you are working, whether you're doing school runs, before school, after school, long day care, your phone must always be on and you must always answer your phone. Yes, you're busy with the kids. We understand. You're busy with the kids. You might be driving, but you need to be contactable at all times. If you are driving, you have to have a phone mount installed in your car where if you get a phone call from the office, you'll be able to answer the phone safely. Okay, we don't want you to get fines or mobile phone fines or anything like that. You should never be breaking any road rules. But even if you're doing school runs and you're using your car, you need to be able to be answer phone calls from the office. Look, it might not be urgent all the time, but sometimes it is urgent. So please try as best as you can to set yourself up so that you can answer phone calls whenever required, as best as you can. And at the very least, return the phone call as soon as possible. Risk and safety management. Daily and annual safety checks include supervision and safe sleep, hazardous chemicals and medication storage, water safety, transportation and excursions, emergency evacuation procedures, safe use of technology, and online safety. Reporting and responding. All allegations or concerns must be reported immediately. Serious incidents and complaints must be notified within required timeframes. The service maintains child protection register and risk assessments. Online and professional boundaries. Personal phones must not be used to photograph children. Children's identities are protected online. Private or secret communication with children is prohibited. Professional boundaries must always be maintained. So some questions about that policy that we just went through. Please explain some of the key parts of the Child Safe Environment policy. And that's the only questions there. The next thing we're going to look at is the Child Safe Environment Risk Assessment. Okay, so we've looked at a Child Safe Code of Conduct. We've looked at a Child Safe Environment Policy. Now we're looking at a Child Safe Environment Risk Assessment. This is a risk assessment used to identify some of the risks to children's safety in family daycare and what strategies will be followed to manage those risks. So we're going to look at each risk one by one and the strategy that we should follow to manage those risks or avoid those risks or minimize the risks. First risk, children not feeling heard or lack of age-appropriate engagement. That is the risk. What do? Educators regularly talk to and listen to children, which of course you do every day. Educators are attentive and observant when it comes to children's indirect cues. Educators will share with parents and the coordination unit any concerns they have for the child's well-being. Okay, next risk, lost child or injury. Okay, pretty simple. Strategy, risk assessments are conducted for each excursion and renewed annually. Okay, so for excursions, obviously when you're at the park or the or the playground or the library, there's a risk of losing a child. So your risk assessment for your excursion covers that. Educators maintain careful supervision both at the FTC excursions and during transportation, especially those of you who walk children to and from school. That supervision is very essential to minimize risks to children. Educators have a first aid kit handy at all times and will contact the ambulance in the event of a serious injury. Next risk, inadequate supervision. Strategy, educators maintain correct educator to child ratios. Educators arrange activities, play areas, and sleep and rest times to avoid any potential gaps in supervision. Now, some of you educators need to look at how your house is set up and laid out and identify potential blind spots in supervision. So, for example, in some houses, we have the indoor play area as the living room, and then we have the bathroom down the hall, around the corner, and then the toilet is there for children to use. So when a child needs to go to the bathroom, um, the child will go out of the indoor play area living room, go to the bathroom, and use the bathroom. So during that time, the educator may not be able to supervise that child, or if the educator accompanies the child to the bathroom, other children may be left unsupervised. So educators need to really think carefully about how they deal with these situations to make sure there's no interruption to supervision of children. Safety hazards in the FTC residence. That is a very generic risk, kind of a general, broad, vague risk. Strategy. Educators perform daily indoor-outdoor checks for harms and hazards and remove any hazard identified. The coordination unit conducts monthly and annual inspections, including a thorough safety assessment. So, very importantly, you are doing a daily check every morning to make sure there's no safety hazards. There, an incident involving a child being harmed, it only takes a few seconds, and it's just one day where there's a safety hazard that has not been addressed, and a child could potentially be injured. Incidents can happen at any time, and don't think that it can never happen in your service. Just take that extra care every day to make sure you're doing your daily check properly. Cyber risks during online learning. Okay, some of you using iPads, tablets, or other online technology with the kids. Strategy. Educators supervise children during online learning sessions. Educators do not access any inappropriate online material during sessions of care. Children are taught not to disclose personal information online. Parents are also advised about online safety. So you've got school-age kids. You should be reminding them. Don't give your name. Don't remind the children. Don't use your real name online. Don't provide your date of birth. Don't provide your phone number. Don't provide your address. Don't provide the name of the school that you go to. Don't provide any personal information when you are online. So children should be reminded of that. Next risk, unauthorized visitors to the FTC. Strategy, the entrance to the FTC remains locked at all times. Educators maintain a record of visitors and reject any suspicious or inappropriate persons from entering the service. So some of you have a gate, and is your gate able to be open from the outside? You need to double check that, please. If your FTC is in your house and then you have the front door, make sure your front door is locked at all times, please. And you should have some kind of keyhole or doorbell camera or something of that nature where you're able to see who is approaching your house. Now we're going to move on to the statement of commitment to child safety. So please hang in there. We're nearly finished. To summarize and emphasize our commitment to child safety, the service has written and adopted a statement of commitment to child safety. Now, each of you has this available in your family daycare, and we ask that you respect this and observe it at all times to the best of your ability. Next, paramountcy principle. The paramountcy principle is a legal and ethical duty which states that the safety, welfare, and best interests of the child take priority over all other considerations in decision making. Practical examples. Number one, responding to child protection concerns. So let's say, for example, an educator notices unexplained bruising on a child and significant changes in the child's behavior. So what would we do in this situation? In practice, the educator documents observations objectively. So what that means is you write down the date, the time, the name of the child, and you say, I observed bruising on the child's face or arm or leg, shins, and it was and that's all you write down. So you be factual and objective. Next, the educator will follow the service's child protection policy and make a mandatory report to the relevant child protection authority. So, if you reasonably believe that this child is at risk of significant harm, then you will report to child protection 132111. Confidentiality with families is maintained, but the child's safety takes priority over maintaining a positive relationship with parents. What that means is that you may be good friends with the child's parents, but if you believe that this parent is abusing the child, then that friendship with that parent will have to be compromised because you may have to report that parent to child protection and tell child protection, I think this parent is abusing their child. Why this reflects paramountcy. The child's protection from harm outweighs concerns about upsetting caregivers or reputational risk to the service. So this is an example of how the safety of the child is the paramount consideration because you've got two things. One is the child has bruises. The other thing is this parent is a nice person and you don't want to get them in trouble. However, if you put the child's safety first, then you're going to make a child protection report, and that means that that parent may have to speak to child protection authorities, and that could lead to consequences for that parent. So at all times, child safety comes first, and we have to prioritize the child. Second example, managing health and safety risks in the learning environment. For example, a popular climbing structure in the outdoor area has become unstable. In practice, educators immediately restrict access to the equipment. The service delays planned outdoor activities and reallocates staff to supervise alternative play. And repairs are arranged before the equipment is used again, even if this inconveniences staff or families. Why this reflects paramountcy, children's physical safety is prioritized over program convenience, routines, or adult preferences. Next example, making decisions about inclusion and behavior support. A child displays aggressive behaviors that pose a risk to other children. So, in practice, educators implement an individual behavior support plan focused on the child's needs and development. Additional supervision and environmental adjustments are put in place. The service seeks external professional support rather than excluding the child unless absolutely necessary. Why this reflects paramountcy. The service balances the well-being of all children, ensuring no child is harmed, while also supporting the developmental needs of the child exhibiting challenging behavior. Questions. Please explain the paramountcy principle in family daycare. So, this is a question that we expect you to be able to answer verbally off the top of your head once you have carefully studied the material in this presentation. And if you have any difficulty or you need some assistance, please make sure you contact our office. Next, we move on to child protection and mandatory reporting. Please hang in there. Thanks very much for your patience so far when we are nearly finished. As an educator, you have obligations under child protection legislation. We all know this. We are just refreshing our understanding. The key obligation is to make a report to the Department of Communities and Justice if you have a reason to believe that a child is at risk of significant harm. If you feel that a child may be a victim of abuse but you are unsure whether you need to make a report, you should use the mandatory reporter guide to help you. access the mandatory reporter guide at the link below. So please use that link there, reporter.childstory.nsw.gov.au/s/mrg. That will basically take you to the guide. And then if you follow this guide, it will help you make a decision whether you need to report or not. So please feel free to practice using this guide in your service. And now I need to go back here. Okay, perfect. So these are your responsibilities. Number one is to observe. Observe means you look at the child, you talk to the child, you listen to the child, and you well, those are the only things. You talk to the child, you listen to the child, and you see visually if there's anything that concerns you, such as anything on the child's clothing or skin or face or anything like that. And that includes, by the way, if you're changing nappies, you may see something concerning in the child's private parts. That is part of what you are observing when you are looking after children. And you may see something concerning. Then number two is to document. Now, document primarily includes writing down or typing up your concerns that you have observed. So, for example, today on this date in May in this year, I saw this child. His name is Sharif, and I saw a cut on his face under his eye, and I asked him, "What happened to your face, Sharif?" And he said, "My dog scratched me at home," or something like that. So anything that you are concerned about as a potential child abuse case, you should write it down. Now, taking photos taking photos is optional. You are not required to take photos of children's injuries. If you do take photos, you need to make sure you store them securely and you follow our safe use of digital technology policy. So be mindful when it comes to taking photos. I don't personally recommend taking photos of injuries. You can simply describe them in writing. After that, you monitor. So the next stage is to monitor. Keep an eye on the child, see what happens the next day, see what happens the following day. And if there are repeated concerns, then that's when you might make a decision to make a child protection report. Sometimes it's a once-off incident where you don't think the child is being abused or you don't think the child is at risk of harm. So then you don't need to make a report, but you should keep your concerns that you have documented in your file and share them with the office so that we can keep them on file as well. And finally, as I said, if you believe that the child is at risk of significant harm, you should make a report. And if you believe the child is immediately at risk of harm, you don't need to wait to do any monitoring or documenting. You can make a report on the spot. And then after that, you can document what has happened. Okay, last topic, safe use of digital technologies. So we are at the end of our presentation, and this is the final topic. If you've made it this far, congratulations, you are a soldier. You're amazing. Educators must have written permission from parents to take, store, and use photos and videos of children. Educators must not use their personal device to take photos or videos of children. Only a work device authorized by the service to be used solely for family daycare purposes. All devices in the FDC space must be authorized or removed. So, for example, we recently had an educator who had a MacBook, like a computer or a laptop, in the family daycare area. Now, this computer or laptop is a device which can take photos. So, that device had not been authorized by the principal office. There was no paperwork with the device's details to record an authorization. So that device was non-compliant with the government's new rules about personal devices capable of taking photos. So, if you have any devices in your daycare, if they can take photos, if those devices can take photos or record images or videos, you have to remove them from your daycare. And if you don't remove them, you need to get them authorized. This includes mobile phones, laptops, tablets, smartwatches, etc., etc., etc. Please make sure that there are no devices capable of taking photos and videos of children. And if you do wish to use one, you provide us the details so that we can make an authorization for that device. And of course, it includes cameras and video cameras if you still have any of those in your home. Questions. Explain 2 key conditions for taking photos and videos of children in family daycare. Are you allowed to share photos of children? Please explain. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating. Thank you for listening to this video until now. This is the end of our child safety training for now. Come back later where we will have another child safety training session. And as always, please put the safety, well-being, and best interest of children as your #1 priority. Thanks very much and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.